And Sarah, you can, give me any tips that you would like, because we have gone through this routine together before. And so it says setting up your meeting to YouTube. Now it's redirecting to YouTube. And now I'll close the YouTube window.
You can close it, or you can just hit mute on the screen because it has a delay.
Sarah, you can, give me any tips that you would like, because we have. Like that? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. That's great.
All right, we're good. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for trying again.
Of course. So many new things ongoing.
All right, so did everyone have a chance to review the minutes, or can we do that really quickly and then make any changes and move for approval of them? Also, does anyone need me to screen share the minutes, or does everyone have them?
Will you screen share them? I have them, but it'd be easier to see it on
Sure
the
thing.
screen.
Here we go. Can everyone see okay? All right, is everyone ready to vote on the minutes? Ah, sorry. Motion approved, twinkling. Did I miss that? I was so busy reading. All right, let's move on to the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda as it was presented? All right, can we get a motion to, all right, thank you, Peter. Can we get a second to approve the agenda as presented?
Julie?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mark, for seconding. Twinkle? All right, moving on. Community comments. Is there any community comments?
I have a community comment.
Okay. Oh, let me read my disclaimer first.
Okay.
All right. Please note this is the public's time to talk and the board's time to listen. Winterberry Charter Council does not hear complaints against students or personnel in public session. It is not the board's practice to engage in discussion or to answer questions during community comments. Commenters' names will be recorded in the minutes. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Well, if anyone's watching who doesn't know me, I'm Molly Towner. I'm the recording secretary for the WCC and the 4th grade teacher. And I want to talk about a type of outbreak that we're used to dealing with at Winterberry. For most of my years at Winterberry, we experience at least one outbreak of lice, and it often starts in a younger grade, but because of siblings, it usually spreads to at least one other grade. In a larger outbreak, Miss Colleen, Nurse Katrina, and sometimes a group of volunteer nurses will come to the school and check every head in the affected classes. Nitpicking takes a lot of vigilance, and children often get lice more than once because of that. At school, the children's snow gear has to be bagged up so it doesn't touch another child's gear. Any soft items like rugs and silks have to be laundered or vacuumed frequently. Lice is no fun, and stopping the spread of it can be very difficult. And now we are dealing with something much more serious, something that can be fatal or have long-lasting health effects. Last week, the National Educators Association shared their criteria for safely returning to school in person. And while I know the WCC that it's not your decision, that none of this is your decision, but I did want to share this information with the community. So their criteria is that 1, a scientific consensus. There is a scientific consensus that the virus has been contained. Number 2, there is a plan to continue to contain the virus, including robust testing, effective contact tracing, and case isolation within the school, and also a way of communicating and coordinating with the broader community about any cases. And number 3, in the criteria is that we need the supplies and training that we need to follow distancing, PPE, and cleaning protocols. So at the moment, the curve is going up. I haven't heard if there are any plans in place to test the students and teachers before returning to school. The school district has invested in large amounts of cleaning supplies and masks, but we've been told that teachers are required to provide our own masks. I am incredibly empathetic about the tough spot that the district is in. I thought they did a great job in the spring, making sure everyone had devices and food and free internet from GCI, and all of the options for returning to school, online, in person, or a hybrid of the two. They all have a lot of problems, and whatever is chosen will make a lot of people unhappy. Several weeks ago, the families were asked by the district for their feedback regarding returning to school. And I don't know if you know this, but teachers were not asked for our feedback. They did have some teachers in working groups, but we were not surveyed as a whole. Yesterday, I sent out a survey to the teachers and TAs at Winterberry, and I've heard back from 11 so far. I asked if we were going to return to school tomorrow. 1 person feels safe returning in person. 10 people do not feel safe returning in person and would prefer to start online. 4 people have underlying medical conditions, and 3 live with at least 1 family member who has an underlying medical condition. 5 have school-aged children, and of those 5, 2 are not sure if they're going to send their child or children in if it's in person. 2 are not going to send their child or children in person. And then 1 must have answered not applicable because 2 + 2 is 4. I am one of the people who does not feel safe returning to in-person school. I would like to spend my planning time and energy right now and until school starts working with my colleagues to create an engaging, robust distance learning curriculum for my 4th graders. And I would like to see us as a community work to figure out how to support families who will experience hardship during the days of the week that the students are online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Molly. Are there any other community comments to share? All right. Thank you again, Molly. And will there be a copy of that in the minutes? Okay, thanks. All right, let's move on to the principal's report. Julie.
All right, so I have a very light report because I don't really have very much information at this point. Um, Today we had a Zoom meeting with our school principals, and that meeting left us all feeling even more not in the know. I didn't have any idea about the survey with the teachers. I haven't heard from any. I have talked to a couple of teachers about a couple of different things, and putting together an email to teachers for a Zoom meeting next week. But I hadn't heard anything about a survey of our Winterberry teachers or anything, which is feel a little out of the loop on that. So I just, in my same fashion of heart, head, and hands, with the heart, I feel like families are staying connected to one another. I know that there's been a lot of conversation. I've had a lot of conversations on the phone with teachers and parents who have called me to ask about what's going on or what I think could possibly be going on. And I've answered all those emails and all those calls with anybody who's asked me, and not having any information, kind of waiting until next week when um, the superintendent is going to address the school board. I felt that with a vacuum of information, it was probably best for me to wait. But I'm feeling now like maybe I should have sent an email out to my teachers. The families are staying connected. Teachers are reaching out to one another. I know that our staff is really close, and I really appreciate all of them. That they have kind of concern for one another and for our Winterberry community as a whole. Parents are keeping our gardens. I was at school all day yesterday, and parents are keeping our gardens watered through the summer, which is wonderful. I said hello to a couple of them while they were in and out of the schoolyard. Mr. Edwin, I saw him briefly and talked to him about whether he has been informed about cleaning and the things that he knows. I asked him if his director is giving him any information about the cleaning in the building, and that he and I will meet up at some point when we have a little bit more information and talk about things. And he said he hadn't heard anything yet either. We do have a brand new phone system in all of our classrooms now, which is really exciting. Each classroom has a phone, which is wonderful. And it was provided by the district. I think it's a new kind of phone system that a lot of schools are going to, and that's great. I connected with our third grade teacher, and am connecting with our new third grade teacher and our movement teacher, to adding them to the faculty Google Drive so they can access information that we work on together as a faculty through the year. And so they can have access also to the staff handbook, so they can kind of get themselves familiar with things, just mainly because maybe in an ordinary time, we would be gathering socially together in a picnic setting or something to welcome our new teachers and want them to feel connected to our staff. And like I said, my plan is to schedule a staff Zoom meeting next week after the school board meeting, and when I know some more information. And I did just have a Zoom meeting today with our director of charter schools and the other charter school principals, and nobody knows very much at all, even anyway. So I am practicing my patience and reaching out to anybody that I can reach out to district-wide, to get little bits of information about funding and cleaning and things like that, and just awaiting some information from them. So that's where I am right now. And I am looking forward to talking to our staff all together next week and putting our heads together about what it is that we are all collectively longing for, and then doing my job, which is to bring everybody together and support our collective need at Winterberry. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing. Is there any questions?
I actually have a question for you, Julie. Just following up kind of on what Molly had said, if, let's say, a majority of this teaching staff doesn't feel safe coming back to the school, do you have the authority as the principal to adopt fully online curriculum, or like how much, authority, I don't know if that's the right word, but power, decision-making capability, whatever the right, to direct the way things go at Winterberry versus the rest of the district, I guess?
That's a great question. I asked that same question today, and it was about, and I was struggling with the word, like, am I allowed to, do I have the authority to, once I get together with my staff and talk to them about what their needs are and what their feelings around coming back and all that, what power do I have to be able to, Daryl doesn't know. I mean, he doesn't know yet, because there hasn't been any definitive word about what is actually even going to happen fully. I mean, they're in a working process right now. So, so what my plan is, sorry about the airplane again, must be windy. We're in our airplane pattern. My plan is to develop with our staff, through the summer, I've been making myself little notes and kind of developing little mini plans of contingency, thinking, okay, well, if it goes this way, maybe we can do this, and keeping the students in the center of my my thoughts, because that's what we're here for, for our students and for the safety of our students and our staff, for all of us at school. So he didn't have any answer for me. What we're thinking maybe, and I will kind of go in this direction, and with any kind of advisement of my board here, is we're a charter school. So we are chartered to deliver a Waldorf inspired curriculum to our students. That's what our charter says that we're doing. To adopt a completely different curriculum, and we would be going directly against our charter to do that. And so, as much as we were going to have to create so much more than what we had probably in the spring, because our spring was our kind of clamoring for our emergency situation there. But again, like somebody pointed out, we are worse off now with our numbers than we were in the spring. So I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. I mean, somebody might know or might have an inkling, but it's not me and it's not our director. And I'm awaiting that information. And I know that the AEA is working with the teachers and trying to gather they're gathering as a group to try and figure out how everybody's feeling comfort level in that way. And I guess our Winterberry teachers are also, surveying and finding out how that goes. And I'll look forward to talking to them more next week about what their feelings are directly. So that's a long way to say I don't really know that much at this point.
I have a question too for families like us where we do not feel safe sending our kids to school, but we very much want to keep Zoe attached to Winterberry. I think the question around is like, if we do our own thing at home or figure something out, will families who choose that option get to keep their spot in their students' class? And I know that I'm on the curriculum committee for the district, and it's like trying to plan for a moving target. Every week we get different information and everything keeps changing on us. So I know how hard it is to answer anything. But I think just to keep that in mind for families who very much want to stay connected, but don't feel safe sending their kids.
And also I brought up in our meeting, because I know that Family Partnership, which is also a charter school, they have such a rapid amount of people that are signing up for their homeschool, for their charter homeschool, that they are now putting a cap on their students at 1,500 students. And when I was on the board at Family Partnership years ago, we had about 500 students. So it's and family and homeschooling has grown. And also just to point out that, and many of you know, and some maybe don't, we have a hybrid program that is in our charter that is a Waldorf homeschool, curriculum, offers a Waldorf homeschool curriculum with a certified teacher to help parents navigate through that curriculum. And that, again, I asked all about that, like, okay, can I move families from the classroom to our hybrid possibility, saving their space for next year? I mean, do I have the power, capability, authority to do that? And Daryl said, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. So those are things that I am, in my little contingency plans that I'm making note on.
Julie, this is Sue. Oh, Jesse, do you want to go first?
Well, I just wanted to, it's more about the order, and I feel like this is right before a discussion topic, but I know that right now this is within the realm of Julie's report. So I'm just wondering, Sarah or Susanna, what your thoughts are on, process and order for the meeting, in hopes that we might be able to have more of a dialogue on this topic today. What are your thoughts? Do you want to do that here, or do you want to do that in a different place?
I think we could spend a lot of time talking about this, and I think there's a lot of different angles to consider, but I would agree that Julie's report is not the best place. We've already approved our agenda. But we could talk about this in business. I think it would be a good time to talk about that, because I think a lot of this falls outside. There is definitely parts of this that fall within Julie's scope, but a lot of it is at the ASD level that is out of everyone's control. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that people have a chance to voice, but I also think, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud as I go here, but I think it would be also useful if, if people have questions, to talk to the school district, to Daryl, to Julie, but I don't want us to spend our whole meeting talking about this, because we have to keep rolling along. But I think we should talk more about it. So where I'm getting to is, would people like to talk about this in business and let Julie conclude her report?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So Julie, if you can wrap up your report, and we'll move on to the rest of our meeting. And yes. Thank you, Jesse, for raising that point. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. As at the conclusion of my report, I'd just like to reiterate that I am ready, willing, able to talk with any parent, any teacher, any concerned citizen out in the world about Winterberry Charter School. I think my cell phone even is on the website. And I hope I've given that message, that I am available at any point for anyone, any teacher, any parent, anyone, to email me, to call me, to text me, to somehow, ask or keep me in the loop with the things that are going on that have direct impact on my own thoughts and the ways that I can continue to lead and manage the school. And so I would just like to put that out there, just not to hesitate. If you would like information, or even know any more information, please come directly to me. And then I'll go with you to any other place and find out information. I'll be your personal guide to anything we can possibly uncover, but I really would appreciate being kept in the loop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Let's move on to our faculty report. Sarah or Lisa, one of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Lisa and I met before the meeting, and we haven't met as a faculty, so there isn't much to report in that way. But I did want to just share a couple of things from summer training. A few teachers attended summer training online. This year we went to the Center for Anthroposophy, and they did their live training over Zoom. And so participants were in grade level groups as well as being in a whole community group. Christoph Wiekert was the keynote speaker, and he spoke a lot about what is needed to serve children in this interim period. He advocated for the use of technology, even in the youngest grades, so that teachers can deliver content daily and make meaningful connections with their students. Specifically, he said that we need to see the technology as a life raft right now and not be afraid to use it. And that sentiment was widely adopted in my first grade session. We talked a lot about how to translate this education online, which was in contrast to what colleagues from all the Waldorf schools across the country had experienced in the spring, particularly in the younger grades. They went offline and had provided certain materials to parents, but there wasn't an online push. It seems that nobody knows what's going to happen in their situation, but everyone is preparing for online education, even in the youngest grades. The other big focus that came out of the training was about examining our practices and providing an anti-racist education. There was a lot of reflection and ideas about ways to decolonize the curriculum, as well as practices that promote equity for all students and families. And this is something that just in my conversations over the summer with Winterberry teachers, this has been on their minds. Last spring, Molly gave a presentation to the whole staff about culturally responsive teaching, and she focused on a few practices that we could look at as a staff. And when she did that training, there was a lot of positive reception, and teachers voiced their opinion that this is an important topic. So although we haven't met officially as a staff yet, I'm hoping this will be something that we continue to take up. And in that vein, I think it would be something that all three boards could take up. Just in light of what's happening around the country, many Waldorf schools are even making public statements on their pages. So those are the highlights from training that I wanted to share. And I'll pass it to Lisa.
And the piece I have is really just in thinking for myself, and also some of the conversations that I've had with my colleagues, and the question that that Paula posed as to whether or not charter schools have the opportunity to advocate for different sorts of responsive teaching that we feel will best meet our needs. I think that's something that is really important, and many of my colleagues are thinking that this is something that's really important for us to be holding in the forefront and really digging into finding out the answers for that.
Thank you, both of you. Let's move on to a WPG report from Jessie.
Thank you. So WPG did not meet this month. We will be meeting next month. And I want to just ensure everyone understands the outcomes of our recent elections. I feel like I could have done a little better job on that at our last meeting. It was determined that I'm going to continue myself, continuing to serve as the liaison. So I'll continue service to both this board and also the WPG in that capacity. We did elect a new treasurer, that is Trina McBride, and that was noted, and just want to acknowledge one last time the service and dedication of our prior treasurer, Barbara, and she will be missed dearly. Also, it was determined that Jessica Gardner, who currently facilitates all of the fundraising for WPG, she is staying on through the fall to just sort of help with continuity given various challenges. And so is Una Martin, and wanted to note that as well. There will be a transition likely at some point in the fall, and WPG will share information about that as things proceed. The body will also be working to facilitate a visioning session at some point during the fall. That won't be focused on COVID. Instead, that's just going to be focused on what we want to see for our school as we move ahead, given whatever the landscape might be in the environment. But do want to note that is a, hopefully will include participation from the 3 bodies and be an opportunity to really have a forward-thinking conversation and envisioning what the purpose and needs are for our school as it relates to WPG business and focus. And, as we all think about WPG, a lot of our focus has been around fundraising. That is a key component of that body's work. But obviously during this time, how we go about fundraising is also going to need to evolve, and we need to recognize that and shift gears as needed. As the faculty mentioned, we are aware that teachers move forward with online options, and as a result, there were significant cost savings rather than facilitating the finances around in-person trainings. So in the fall, we'll regroup with teachers and have a better understanding of where we are with budgets and so forth. We're also thinking about activities as we lead into the school year, depending on what that school year might look like. And we are saddened that we won't likely have a gathering like we traditionally have hosted, that back to school picnic, so to speak. It doesn't look as though that would be a prudent step at this point in time. We'll continue that conversation, but that's sort of where things were resting when I had a chance to reconnect with Una most recently. And that'll conclude my report for today. Certainly want to express gratitude for our teachers and gratitude for our whole faculty at our school as we work to address what needs to happen here in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Jessie? Okay, thank you, Jessie. All right, do we have anything from the safety committee? I'm sure we will at some.
Yeah, exactly. You look like you have little cat ears now. The cat's right behind your head. It's really funny. No, I don't think we have anything at this point since we haven't been at school. And we have so much about safety that we have not talked about. So anyway, Colleen is coming back next week to school. And so Colleen and Shane and I will, because we meet each month for the safety meeting. So I'll have a report by next week. Next month for that.
Thank you, Julie. Outdoor play space.
It looks good. The grass looks really, really weedy. And I was walking on it yesterday thinking, oh my gosh, there's no grass. There's just little weeds. So anyway, I guess that's what happens when you put 236.5 children on sod. Anyway, I don't know. I'll continue to work with Una on outdoor play space things through the next, through this next year. We're going to be continuing to work on that.
Thank you, Julie. Moving on, legislative policy. Jessie?
So my big update in relation to this is, as we speak, departments across the administration are digging deep and working on their budgets. And that is really going to drive the next step of conversations and certainly legislation and reactions from the legislature. Once we have a better understanding of the level of reductions that might be needed, looking at our huge budget crisis that we're in. We anticipate that the constitutional budget reserve will be zeroed out. We're looking on a rosy picture day of like 1.5 billion for a budget for the entire state government in terms of resources that are available. And that is about 1/9 of what we're typically accustomed to, when times were much rosier, with more resources coming from the pipeline and into our economy. So all that to say, there's going to be ever more pressure for the legislature to look at how to realize savings, and I'll be really, we'll continue to be vigilant and watching very closely to see how that might be impacting Department of Education and what their next steps will be along those lines. That's it for now. And if we start to look and see bills of interest or get wind of any sort of major development, I'll keep you abreast of those, but I also know many of you are watching these issues closely too, and would ask your help in flagging anything that comes to your awareness as well, so we can stay on top of it. And I guess I have one other thing to mention about legislative policy that does relate to some of our ongoing conversation we'll have under business. I do think that it will be important to see what the reactions are and what the needs are in response to both the recession and also the pandemic. And there's been a lot of focus in the legislature as to how those CARES funds, the federal funds that are flowing to the state, how those are dispersed and what's happening with those funds at a local level. That's been far slower than most advocates ever anticipated, even knowing that government goes slow. It's been painfully slow, especially given how many individuals are struggling. This has an impact on children. It has an impact on our families. And I would anticipate that there would be further action taken by the legislature to try and address some of those hardships and needs. So that's another angle to be looking at as it affects families and school-age children. That's it.
Are there any questions for Jessie as it pertains to legislative policy? Okay, thank you, Jessie. All right, I did not receive anything from Shayna, so she must be out for this month, I'm assuming. So we will move past budget because I don't believe we have anything to report at this time.
Yeah, I think that they're camping is what I think is happening. I think I remember her saying that, so anyway.
All right. Julie, do we have any update from the Alliance for Public Waldorf Education?
We do not have any update, although I also emailed them again because I noticed that their website has a completely fresh new look. So I know that they are activated, but for whatever reason, they either don't have the staffing or whoever to email me back individually. I emailed the person on their website that they said, for any questions, contact so-and-so. And I have consistently reached out by phone and by email, but have not received anything back to date. I will continue to do that because I do think that something's happened and they've been reconstituted because they have a good looking website, very good looking. So
Julie, I think that's the best that we can hope for at this point for just persistent contact. We haven't given them any money, so at this point, so just keep it up. Short of skywriting in front of wherever they're located, I don't know what else you could be doing at the moment.
Yeah, and I'll reach out. I'll reach out to a couple of the names that are involved in the alliance and see if I can get somebody to, not just the main person, but I think I'll look at the board, and I think I have email addresses from some of those board members. I'll just give them a little like, hey, what's going on? So anyway, I am sure everybody's inundated. They did some really interesting, they sponsored some really interesting talks on Zoom meetings and things like that through the end of spring, for administrators, for teachers and things like that. So yeah, they're doing things, which is great, because there wasn't much going on that I could find the last few years. So we'll catch up with them.
All right, thank you, Julie. Finally, grant committee. Alex, is there anything to report?
There's nothing to report. We have not had a meeting this summer. The only thing I can say is to sort of echo some of, I think, the sort of well-spoken things that Principal Pepe Phelps said about requesting input from anyone with ideas or concerns or comments. Please feel free to contact the grants committee by emailing winterberrygrants@gmail.com. That's winterberrygrants@gmail.com. Peter, leave it to Peter. Peter, do you have anything?
Not at this time. Look forward to meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, this concludes our informational reports. Let's move on into our business item, which is to, as I understand it, and please correct me if you think I should expand it, Winterberry's response to school starting in about, 5 weeks? And what our scope of, power, for lack of a better word, is to kind of write our own destiny as a school within the confines of the school district. That is how I see it. I don't think that we can resolve it tonight. And I also don't think as a board, we really have a lot of power over that. But I would like to hear everyone's thoughts. And I have my own thoughts, but I'd like to hear from others as well. Thanks.
Susanna, I have some initial thoughts, but then I'd like to just be silent and listen to others. I do think you're spot on for us to be thinking about really what our role is as a board. And it is obviously first and foremost to support our principal and to ensure the well-being of our school and to uphold our charter. And so I do think that this conversation is well placed, but I also agree that we need to be mindful of the time we have and our knowns and our unknowns. I heard a question earlier around holding a space for an individual if they don't feel safe coming to school, what then happens to their seat. If you haven't had a chance to listen to Superintendent Bishop's comments that she made to the press, she spoke at length. I do believe that there's likely a recording out there and we should look for that and listen to it. There is a lot of information that is currently being shared by the district well in advance of that upcoming board meeting. And for those that aren't aware, the board meeting is on the 21st. And there seem to be some efforts to limit in-person attendance limit opportunities for that type of testimony. And it would be prudent to think about opportunities to express thoughts and feelings as relates to return to school and doing so safely at that board meeting. There has been some discussion about maybe encouraging that testimony to be shared by email or in writing rather than delivering it. One prudent thing would be maybe to just do our best to request that the board hear from the public and do what we can to get that information out and circulated. That's just an idea. And that might not be through this body, but through another mechanism, whatever is prudent and responsible for us as a board. I also think that we have a role as it relates to health and safety, and I'm very interested in learning more about how that could be done, given how little we know about this virus truly, and the spike and surge that we're seeing. So I have very deep respect right now for all of you teachers and staff who are grappling with what to do, and not only, you know, how to protect our students and our way of teaching at our school and delivery of that curriculum. But I think about you personally as teachers, and I think about your families. And it's really important to me as a board member to know that you are going to be safe too in this whole process. Those are my comments at this point.
Jesse, thank you for linking to that press conference. I had not had a chance to watch that yet. Does Dr. Bishop speak to specifically if a charter school parent pulls their child out of the charter school to homeschool, do they lose their spot?
She indicated they would not.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that's, if they go through the version of what's being offered now through the school district. There's lots of options. It's been a little messy, honestly, in the delivery of all of that. But it's out there. They decided to really put all of this out well before the board meeting. And so in many ways, there's enough information out there for us to be following breadcrumbs. It's not speculation. The district is indicating kind of where they're headed. And at this point in time, the district is very strongly feeling as though our community is ready for attending school in person 2 days a week. And this was announced in the midst of when a surge is already apparent in our community.
To clarify, I've been informed as on the curriculum committee, at least for secondary, because we're working on the curriculum, that anyone who chooses straight up virtual will be enrolled in Florida Virtual School for secondary students. And then I was told by the principal of both Padea and Family Partnership, if I choose to enroll Zoe, my 5th grader, into that she would then no longer be enrolled at Winterberry. So if I want to stay, I think there's some miscommunication, because I did watch Dr. Bishop's press conference, and then I have since received conflicting information, and I know it's kind of a mess. So that's kind of what I've been hearing from my end.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate you flagging that inconsistency. I'm not surprised by that.
I'd just like to interject just to add to the confusion that there's, several different types of homeschooling. There's the regular Padea homeschool. There's the other option, I forget what it's called, where you're homeschooling through, for example, Winterberry, and there's also the hybrid program, and they're all different options. And I did listen to the conference too, and I came away with an ambiguous understanding of what the what the plan is or isn't. But bottom line, it's a money question, I think. Well, and health, of course, balancing health and money. And that's, very salient to our jobs as board members to help with that, or keep an eye on it. So I don't know either.
And just to add to that, Alex, I have talked to a few parents that have called me, and I want to, as much as I am allowed to, be as generous as I possibly can for parents to seek and develop options and opportunities for their family that they feel are the best choices for their family. The freedom to do that and the choices to do that for our families and our students, as much as I can possibly do, and what I'm in the, and I mean, part of what my job is also is to look after the financial health of our school. So that being said, my generosity for expanding to what the family's needs are has to also have some reflection in what happens to our financial budget, because I also will not, if it is in my power in any way, let our school fall financially. I mean, fall apart financially. We have a nice amount of savings, but I don't know when we're called to be able to put school on, and because we're a charter school, we're going to be paying for things out of our own budget. It's not going to be provided like it is provided for neighborhood schools. I found that out today in our charter school meeting. So, we were told to be, mindful of what monies we have and be prepared. Some schools are saving for a site, for instance, to get out of a basement somewhere. And so what I was told is, keep a very good eye on your finances as far as your money goes and things, because if we, for instance, and there's so many scenarios, it's just, you start to spin one and you start to go down a rabbit hole, but we go back to school, teachers feel comfortable or not comfortable, substitutes come in to take over those positions that need to be taken over. What substitutes are available, how we're going to pay all these substitutes. So many questions. If a teacher gets sick, is the whole class quarantined? Are what happens with the siblings of all those classes? I mean, there are questions upon questions upon questions. And the more you ask, the greater and the deeper it gets. So anyway, it's a little bit stifling in that way, because you start to ask a question. It's like, well, yeah, well, if this goes along like this, then that would probably be the answer, but we don't know. And just living in that, or at least in this temporary place, in that, not knowing. So anyway, but my bottom line is, as generous as I can be with our students, with the flexibility that I can afford to my families at Winterberry without sinking our school financially. So that's where I am on all that. And I don't know what I can do or yet at this point.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Julie. This is Sue. And well, I'm brand new to WCC, so I'm trying to figure out how these comments are going to be. I've got my parent hat on, and I'm working on my WCC hat. But one thing I would like to urge is, and we know that things are ever changing. There's so many unknowns, right? But as much, I've had people come up to me, Sue, what's going on? Sue, what's going on? I'm like, I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for the district to tell me. I'm waiting for WCC. I'm waiting. So is that as much transparency and communication with families, even if it's, we don't know yet, to be communicating to, in some way. And if that needs to be a person, I think I'm thinking about, we were started by parents, we started by parent, the whole story. And so what do we need to do as parents, as families of Winterberry to come together and say, this is how we're going to help our school sustain. And if it's, grade by grade with the support of the grades teacher and the hybrid just what does that look like? And that, I had notes written down and then it's closed, but that there's probably not one way that's going to support everyone, but that that the health and safety of our teachers and our staff and our kiddos is really in the forefront, and we may lose families because we don't meet I'd rather lose families and know that they can come back if we go back to brick and mortar than to, if that's even an option as a charter school, to say we're going to stay home longer, than to have teachers leave and have substitutes, because I, for one, know what it's like to have a kiddo have holes in their education because of changing teachers. So I would really want to look at the safety and the fidelity of our model over following what the district says, I guess. I'm done.
And I think that really comes down to, I think, a question of what role, if there is a role, can this particular board serve in being advocates for delivering high quality Waldorf education in the way that we know is best going to rhythmically and predictably serve our students. I mean, is there anything that this particular board can do to stand up and say to the charter school community, we already have a working model for what a homeschool Waldorf education delivery looks like? Can we feed the rest of our programming into that? Is that even a possibility within what ASD is offering right now? And so I mean, I think as a board, we are standing at a level that is higher than possibly and more advanced possibly than where other schools are finding themselves. We already have a model for what it can look like to deliver the kind of education via distance that we know our families want, and we know that our teaching community is able to deliver. So I don't know what role this particular board can do, can serve in helping support that, if that's what we decide our school community is best served by.
I would like to see us pursue that, not pursue that as an option, but pursue the question with the district of whether or not we can be more restrictive when it comes to safety than what the district decides, should they decide to go in person. That doesn't mean that I don't think that decision is a whole can of worms, but I think the first step is deciding and advocating for that power over our school, given that this is the first time and nobody knows the answer to that question.
And it's more restrictive, but it's also more consistent potentially. It saves that flip-flopping back and forth between distance education versus in-person education versus distance versus in-person.
Yeah. I mean more restrictive as far as safety. Like I'm in regards to, I know that we always have to meet the district standard. If they say masks, we're going to do masks. We can't do less. But can it be that our school, our administrator, our board decides that we would like to increase safety standards for our site, which means delivering 100% distance?
I have an idea along those lines, and that might be to form a small team to plan a agenda for a meeting with Daryl and the superintendent and maybe, another staff of hers to explore what that could look like. I think that we have an avenue of opportunity because this superintendent really does believe in empowering charter schools. And if this board made a decision to stand up in that realm of advocacy and proceed with something like that, if we do a good job of presenting a very sound plan for it, I think there's a real good chance that we could win favor and have an opportunity to proceed.
Jesse, I think that is a wonderful idea. And one thing that I have been watching and would like to see and think would be wise to go in is to have a set of parameters about what is safe, what's considered a control of community spread in order for us to come back. And that's one thing as a teacher that I saw their model and I saw the different risk levels and that they would like to move into the lower risk model after a couple of weeks. And to me, I think that risk isn't determined by what you can do, but what's happening in the community. And I would like to see language around what % of transmission is happening, how many days, like 14 days with a flattened or decreasing curve. And I think it would be wise to have some of those things that were even mentioned in Molly's community comments if we were going to advocate that route, to be really clear about what it is that we consider a safe return back to school.
Agreed. And I want to make sure with that idea of sending a small team, that I would want for our principal to be on board with that notion and actively involved. Obviously, that should go without saying, but I don't think I articulated that. And I don't know what your thoughts are of that, Principal Pepe Phelps, if you think it's a good step forward or not.
Well, my plan was to see what next Tuesday brought as far as the information to the school board. That was my initial plan. And then also to put together, like I said, a meeting, an optional meeting for whatever faculty would like to, faculty and staff would like to participate next week after that meeting in order to gain some, I haven't talked to my staff. I didn't have anything to do with the survey of the staff or any of the things that have been put forth this evening. And so I feel out of the loop, actually. And what I'd like to do as the principal is I would like to get to reach out to my staff with a little bit more information and let Tuesday happen and then reach out to the staff, come together and talk about what it is that the whole staff, so that I can actually hear from my staff what it is that they are, what their concerns as a whole group. I appreciate the survey. I really do appreciate knowledge and information. I have been reading emails and seeking information in every way that I can seek it. I just would have loved to be in that loop with my staff. Mm-hmm. So if we could gather together and I could get a sense from my meeting with them, what it is that we would collectively like to do. There's this saying, the go slow, go together. And I know we can't go too slow because we have to make decisions and put our voice forward. But I do think that a good first step would be to listen what happens next Tuesday, to actually, because all the documents that I've been reading say on the bottom working, working process draft, so that nothing definitive has come out in my purview or the purview of my director or my fellow charter school principals. So I would like to wait till that meeting, and Daryl felt like that was a prudent idea. Like, yeah, we'll probably hear some more information then. And then I would like to get together with my staff, my whole group, and I'd like us to have a conversation around how everybody's feeling. And then I would like to, with that information, I'd like to put a letter out. My plan was to put a newsletter out by next Thursday to our whole school community to say, this is what I know so far. This is what I don't know. And just, let's continue to, anything that I know that comes into my view, I will let everybody else know. I just haven't gotten any information that I feel like that's worthy of starting the process of planning, or a lot of effort that happens for people.
Oh, you went on mute. We lost you. You
Julie,
went
you're
on
muted.
mute, Julie, your last couple of sentences, but I understand you're looking forward to regrouping with your staff. That makes complete sense. My only other follow-up question then is really about process, and that is, do we understand exactly what is going to happen on Tuesday evening and what types of decisions the board will be making at that point in time? Because in the absence of any action, this is my feedback, if we wait, that window of opportunity to try and influence or open minds a little bit around a creative additional opportunity for charter schools like ours, those windows might not still be there after Tuesday night. That's my one hiccup in a kind of going slower approach right now.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. And I did directly ask Daryl if he would, in our meeting today, if he would bring forth those questions and advocate for us as a, as our charter schools, the things that we felt having to do with whether or not collectively we want to go back. I mean, I could email our staff and see if tomorrow everybody wants to get together as far as their safety. But it sounds, I mean, from Molly's report, or from her community comment, it sounded as though that's already been done. So we already have data, which I have, like I said, I haven't seen about our Winterberry staff and their concerns about whether or not they want to go back or not. So if that is what the board feels that they like to, request for me, I'm very happy to speed that process up by asking how many, and I don't know who's camping tomorrow or what's happening, but it could be tomorrow or Monday, and get the staff together and see what's happening and then get back. Or, again, like if the board wants to operate and put forth, I just feel like there should be more input that I have any bit of knowledge about from my staff before the WCC, because the WCC usually takes into account the staff. And like I said, I had no idea. I had no idea that was even happening. So,
Julie, thank you very much for just your transparency right now. And this is hard. It's really, really hard. And I appreciate your leadership and just trying to maneuver and figure out the next steps and how to move this forward. So thank you for this dialogue.
of course.
I wanted to speak to this as well. Just trying to listen. And I do think that I'm inclined to agree with what Jesse is saying, that there is a finite window of opportunity that we have in front of us. And I think I really appreciate also the points about our capabilities that we have as a board that is unique to our position in the school district. And we should capitalize on that. I mean, I think because, you know, speaking to your point, Julie, of how all the documents say working, it's like things are still kind of gelling together. And so if we can offer our solution, you know, basically, oh, it looks like there's a lot going on right now. This is what would work for our school. And we already have the model in place. It works for our school. And offering it to the school district, I think would be a really wise move to make. And it really seems like the school district is very splintered, or maybe not splintered is the right word, but there doesn't seem to be a cohesive message. As a parent, I haven't really felt like there's been a lot of information, but I don't know if there's necessarily, yeah. So my inclination is for the school to present a plan, and if it's not possible, then I think the school district will tell us. But I don't think it hurts to present it, and I think we should move on it swiftly. And as far as how that gets accomplished, you know, we can figure that out. But that's my thoughts. Yeah, and Paula, I see what you're saying. And I think the key word there, right, is reopening. So if we are reopened, but it's virtually, does that satisfy, you know, our school being open? If we're just delivering our course content in a different way than maybe the school district is recommending. So.
Does anybody have an answer to that question though? Like, what is the fastest way for us to just get the answer? Because it seems like it should be fairly, you know, like straightforward. Just ask somebody like under Alaska state law or whatever law, you know, governs school districts, like can a charter school principal, you know, what latitude does a charter school principal have to, you know, deliver education during a pandemic?
And it's the place, I think also timing and place of asking that question. If we put a district official up on the spot in front of an audience, right, versus do you feel that out in a quiet, more intimate setting and lay out the case, and then, you know, help, you know, give them some breadcrumbs in terms of charter law, charter school, what we have in place, that might help. I don't know if they could get themselves in a precedence situation potentially if they're put on the spot publicly. That's my
concern. I don't think I would do it on the spot. I would try to ferret out the information through back channels.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to, if we want to come up with, you know, just that question, a series of questions, I'm happy to ask those questions to Daryl. I'm happy to directly ask those questions to our superintendent via email, following up in whatever way I need to. I don't have any problem asking that question. All the questions that any of us asked Daryl today, I mean, varieties of questions, he had absolutely no answer to, none. He's like, just watch your funding, because if your schools drain out, you'll have no money and no way to run your school, and your school will close.
Well, and that's why, Julie, I'm really wondering if we can collectively as a board come to some idea of a sense of less of a question, but more of a proposal that we bring to Daryl and say, given the fact that we already have a distance education, a homeschool opportunity, is there, I mean, this is what we would like to propose, and is there any way that this is a possibility? I don't know.
And
Lisa,
oh, I'm sorry.
I would just, if I could, sorry to interject. Lisa, I personally agree with you, but and I'm not saying, but I disagree. I'm saying, and I'm responding to all of the comments I've heard up till now, not just Lisa by any means. We're a board, we have to operate in the open. If we get together and we come up with a plan that we want to present as a board, that we have to do that very carefully and openly. And I personally feel that it's not a bad idea to get our heads together and start to think of a plan, but it has to be done carefully. And I tend to think that it's the principal's job to present this in any way she feels is best for our school. We have a lot of constituents at our school, and this is a very complicated question, and we have so little information to work with right now that it's a huge challenge to come up with something very satisfactory by Monday or before Monday. I don't envy Principal Pepe Phelps' position, but I just want to just suggest exercise caution in how we would go about this. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unrealistic to think that we're gonna come up with a plan by Monday. I personally think, the first thing is just to find out what our options are. Like what level of independence does a charter school have? And then report back, or somehow, I don't know if we have to stick to this monthly meeting schedule or if we can have like an emergency meeting. But I think just getting the answer to that question is where the groundwork starts. And if there is quite a bit of latitude, to do what we want to do as a school, maybe then the next step would be, talking to the teachers, opening up to parents, whatever. But I'm not sure how you go about developing the plan. But I think it's a waste of time putting a lot of energy and thought into developing a plan if we don't even know if we can, do that. We can legally do that.
Here's just a question. What I've heard from the faculty that have spoken about this idea is to look at what we already have in place for our hybrid program and modifying that so that it bridges more broadly. Is that what you're trying to envision when you're talking about a plan? Is there anything different beyond that?
I don't know if I am quite to that step yet, as much as just asking if we can have more control over making the decision to offer a virtual versus in person. But it is tricky because you have to have an idea if you're going to advocate about exactly what it is that you are proposing or advocating for.
Mm-hmm.
So
that goes back to Paula's question then. Is it just, are we allowed to do things differently or not?
And that's what I directly asked Daryl today. And in as many ways as I could get around the question to try to get an answer. And he, he just doesn't know. And he has people that he's talking to ongoingly. We gave him our questions. He's bringing those questions to the different components of the elementary and secondary education directors and different safety people and things like that. And another thing is I haven't myself polled our Winterberry families to know what percentage of families want to come back to school and what do not. I have not, again, like I said, spoken directly to my staff about that. So for me to make a decision that would be in this unprecedented decision-making time, that would be without information and input from the two most valuable, the two groups that are Winterberry Charter School, I feel like is stepping a little out of bounds for me. I need more information from more people. I can definitely ask Daryl the question and push on to get the answer. Like, what decision can I make? Can I just say, we're just going to work on our online program and that's what we're going to do at Winterberry? Do I have, and even though the school district is not going to do that, and we're a public school chartered under the Anchorage School District, are we still allowed to do that because we're a charter school? And we feel like this would serve our students and families better. Some families may not want to do that. And in that way, I'd have to make the best call based on judgment that I would, decide upon with some more information. So, like I said, I'm happy to go forward and ask those questions for our school. And then with the strength of the board at the school board meeting, possibly asking the questions publicly so that the answers can come in a different way. But like you said, Jesse, being mindful of the fact that everybody's trying to figure this out and keeping in mind that the generous, the fact that I think the superintendent and I think most of the school board wants the safety and health of our students. I think that's, and they're looking at all the components that go into safety and health. And so I don't think it's ever been thought of in this way. And I think that people are struggling. So I think that it's definitely worthy of me pushing for some answers, like what can I do, so that when we get the information and decide, I think it's in everybody's best interest that we go to fully online or stick with what the school district is asking us to do. But there's so many components. I mean, there's the teachers' feelings about that. There's the families' feelings about that. So it's a very, very complicated situation.
I want to just pipe up here. I think it might be, I'm really conscious of abiding by the Open Meetings Act for any decisions that our board makes. I think we can satisfy those requirements while also continuing this discussion. So I wanted to see what folks thought about forming a working committee to delve into this, comprised of Julie and at least one faculty member, as well as one or two WCC members, maybe more. And we can publicly notice it, but in that, formulate a plan and then come back to the board with information. Or would the entire board like to have an emergency meeting next week to follow up on this? I want to hear what people think of that.
This is Sue. I would agree with that. I think working concurrently with Julie, inquiring about what possibilities are, but I can just hear people saying, we've never been through this before, we don't know. And so instead of asking it's kind of like, instead of asking permission, making a statement, this is what we are capable of doing, is so that when it's kind of like needing to take control, right? So, okay, so we hear that people don't know what's going on. We have a plan, and this is the plan. And so I like the idea of a work group working, even if it turns into we can't do it. We've generated some ideas, because it might turn into something. And I do like and I'm thinking about, Julie, what you said about polling the parents or polling the teachers. And if we found out we needed to act on this quickly, really utilizing WPG parent reps and doing kind of like the survey that the teachers did in the spring, and just phone tree and just have the same questions, generate the same questions that the reps could ask and to each family, and getting back to us if we found out that we needed to act on this sooner than later.
I like the idea of both surveying the teachers, one, to find out what their comfort level is. That's going to be really useful information. I think it's also really it will be really good information to survey the families and just ask them how comfortable, you know, they would feel returning to school as it is now 2 days a week. You know, just maybe a 5-question survey just to gauge their comfort level. And you know, if it turns out that the majority of families just, you know, don't feel safe, they're not going to send their kids back, you know, physically. I mean, that would just yield so much information that then could help guide the decision making. So, I mean, to me, it seems like those are the 3 essential things. Find out what latitude a charter school principal has, how do the teachers feel, and how do the families feel? You know, and with that, then you can sort of formulate some kind of plan.
I would just like to say that so long as we are doing 2 things properly, one, we're doing everything in public and in the open in accordance with the Public Meetings Act, and 2, we're not usurping our principal's role as manager of our school. I kind of view this discussion, the sort of freewheeling discussion we're having, as a not binding discussion whatsoever, and which is fine. But I think we need to keep this, you know, in the forefront of our mind. And when we hired Ms. Peppy Phelps, I'm pretty sure everybody was very confident that she would do a great job, and I've seen nothing other than a great performance from her. So I personally don't think this is just my personal comment, that we need to worry, but we need to make sure that we're not overstepping our role.
Alex, thank you very much. I appreciate those words of confidence, confidence building in a much needed confidence building time. And I wanted just to add to that I really do appreciate, I do really appreciate anybody's suggestions. You know, again, like I'm sitting at my desk making things up, thinking, okay, well, maybe I could call, and having more minds on something that we all share a great interest in is, and it is ultimately my responsibility, and I will take all the responsibility for things that I have been hired to be responsible for, absolutely. But I do also really appreciate the support, and I appreciate anything that people can you know, suggestions and ideas and things. And I will do all that I will do to, you know, carry those ideas forward and build. But I really like to hold on to the 3-body together model, you know, decision making, even in these times, and with keeping in mind the care in, and I appreciated, Sue, what you said, like in light of anybody's, oh, I don't know, here you go. Let me package this up. How about this? Will this work? Okay, great. We're going to go do this. So when people don't know, if we can give them something like, this is what we would like to do. But before I even go step forward, I need to talk to our teachers and find out, what do you think? Are you prepared? I mean, it was very stressful for everyone to, you know, get Google Classroom up and to put forth a Waldorf education delivered virtually. Do teachers feel more confident 3 months later to do that? Probably a little more confident in what we know how to do. But do my teachers want to do that? I don't know. I haven't talked to them. So I do feel like before, and then parents, you know, and then, but then again, what I'm thinking is I'm going to just continue to develop contingencies. how about this model? If the winds go this way and you know, whatever, and we have to do it, and I don't have the authority to take everything online, then what do I have the ability to do to pay attention to the safety and the freedom of our students and their families? I mean, I'm going to gather all these little sub ideas together and then make the best decisions that I can. And I want to have as much support as I can from everyone and as much input as I can, input and then support through that. So anyway, appreciate it.
So I'm not hearing a strong push for a committee, which is fine. I'm just trying to hear any actionable things that will be happening after this meeting. And Julie, I think I'm hearing that you're going to reach out to your staff and parents sometime in the next, I'm not sure when, but when works for you, I suppose.
Well, I just was going to wait for a little bit more information, but it will depend on, as the board talked about before, wanting to kind of have some idea before the Tuesday board meeting, school board meeting, to have some position that we, and so what that indicates to me is that, you know, next Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday Zoom meeting with staff is not going to be soon enough. So I will send an email out, probably, what time is it? Either tonight or tomorrow morning. Well, tonight, I guess, because I'm going to offer a Zoom meeting either tonight or tomorrow or Monday with the staff to come together and get some input. Then as far as polling our community, you know, we could put together a survey monkey that we could put out, because Miss Colleen comes back on Monday. And if we could do put together some kind of survey that we could put out over, I personally don't know that much about how to do that. So if anyone on the board knows how to put together a survey monkey that would be able to accommodate, you know, the 250 families or whatever, that'd be great. I would appreciate that help. But then if I could survey our families, you know, put it out tomorrow and get some results by Monday afternoon before our board meeting, then I'd have at least a little bit more information. And I'm happy to speak at the school board meeting, or, you know, send an email, a phone call to our superintendent. I'm happy to be a mouthpiece for our community. I just feel very uncomfortable doing anything unilaterally, and I don't have enough input from our key people, parents and teachers at this point.
Mm-hmm. Principal Pepe Phelps, when we do have the tools, and however you want to capture that parent info, please do let me know, and I'll brief Una with a sort of a roundup from this meeting, because Sue's right. You know, this is a great time for WPG to help with spreading the word and letting folks know about an opportunity to provide input at a really critical time for families.
I agree.
Is there anything else that folks would like to add to this discussion before we wrap things up? This is the time to speak.
My only question is if this body has further thoughts about the Tuesday evening board meeting, and if that is something that should also just be communicated out for families to be aware of.
Were you thinking a notice from Winterberry or from the Charter Council?
don't know. I'm sensitive to the nature of that notice. I don't think that it would be appropriate to necessarily give people what to say, but just letting them know about it, I think is what is appropriate for it to be on their radar. So I don't know who, maybe that's Winterberry News or when you're communicating this out, so for that channel, but families might not be aware that that is happening.
I'm confused. Are they supposed to be voting on something that night? That, I mean, I don't follow the school board that closely, so I honestly don't know like what the purpose of the meeting, like what is going to happen that's really crucial that we would want to weigh in on. Is it the school reopening process for the whole district?
Yes, that's what's on the agenda. And they're going to have like 4 hours of testimony. So I really wonder, well, 4 hours for a meeting. So that's what I'm really curious about too, Paula, is like, what is the timeline for the board? And Principal Pepe Phelps, I asked you about that, and it seemed like Daryl, it doesn't have a lot of answers in terms of the timeline. I'm concerned that that is a rapid timeline given the indicators that we have. And so in absence of anything else, I don't know what to anticipate. You know, are they going to, they're going to need to spring into action pretty quickly in order to lift things off the ground and open, if that's what they're going to want to do. So I'm nervous, frankly, about what the board may or may not vote on at that meeting.
So I will let our Winterberry community know via our constant contact, which is our Winterberry business, that there will be a Tuesday board meeting, and I'll find out the details of that and be sure that that's in that all community notification. I will try and get together a meeting with as many staff members as are available on tomorrow or Monday, depending on availability. I will also work on putting together a survey monkey, a simple survey monkey with some key questions that I can send out to the entire Winterberry family, all of the families. Just simply, do you feel comfortable? Even, you know, I have to, you know, finesse the wording, but because I want to be clear, but also be, I want to be clear, but I don't want to have any leading feelings for anyone. If people feel comfortable sending their child to school, then I want to hear yes and, you know, no, or not really, or and then have maybe some ability to read those comments. So I'll put, I'll figure out how to do that. I have people that know how to do that. I'll contact them. Anyway, so those are the three things that I will again contact Daryl, and you know, I'll send him an email tonight too and say, on the heels of our conversation and our charter school meeting and all the unknowns, my board is very eager to know what my capabilities are in light of the district and decisions that I will make for our charter school. And he's the perfect person to find out those answers. He's my director. So, and I'll, you know, look into other sources as I can to find that information out also. So.
For what it's worth, I just put out some questions, very basic questions in the chat. Sometimes it's helpful to look at things. I don't necessarily feel like we need to get too much in the weeds. I agree with Alex, Julie, that, you know, this is in your capable hands, but in case it's helpful, I wrote out a few questions for reference.
I put it in the chat, but I think we really need to be careful with the wording we're using for reopening virtual and homeschool and hybrid. Because if what Aaron says, if we're saying virtual to an ASD person and they're saying, well, yeah, virtual is done through Florida, that's just something to be mind, like the wording around what it is that we're trying to do, right? Hybrid, I don't know. I mean, a hybrid model, because that to us, we know what that means.
Mhm.
And I do believe, I think I remember, I was trying to do my memory, that we had a certain amount of spaces that we said that hybrid could have, but that it could, we left it in the, I think we left it in the chart that it could expand. And
Yeah.
so to go back and look at the charter and see what it says about that. So I'm just thinking if we say hybrid, that it might cut down on some misunderstanding.
So, and in the hybrid model that is in our charter, we have an offering of, we offer families a homeschool Waldorf curriculum and a choice of 4 or 5 curriculum. We also have a teacher who, what we have said all along with hybrid is, you know, as many as a teacher can accommodate, usually around 50 families is a typical sponsor teacher or a teacher that's in charge of families, kind of managing them through the years, and that we would hire beyond that. At this point in time, we've had right around 28, you know, anywhere from 14 to 28 hybrid families that come to our school each year. And our hybrid teacher previously and currently feels comfortable with that number. And if there are, and so, you know, we have the ability and we have the, and I've spoken to our current hybrid teacher to generate, you know, just thoughts about doing a more at home, you know, Waldorf inspired curriculum, really keeping the roots of that and that what families need. Because when as I've been the hybrid teacher, I know when I face a family that is going to be in charge of the education of their child, which is what we're asking now, possibly the whole district, like they did in the spring, parents delivering that education for the most part, sitting with young children especially, and helping them learn. It's really teachers teaching parents. And we already do that at Winterberry. So I feel very confident actually that we could switch over if that was within something that the school district would allow us to do, that we could switch over to something that would be very satisfactory, with a lot of teacher support, and try to and be able at the same time to maintain all of our teachers, to hold on to all of our teachers, and to keep our numbers so that we are able to retain all of our teachers, all of our staff, and not go under as a school. So I have had some very creative conversations already, and I feel actually very hopeful. I know this is a time of great trepidation, but I am a person of great hope. And I feel that in many ways, families will, especially our families, will learn a lot. I mean, kind of when we were talking about things that we want to do in the years, one of my goals for this next school year was going to be kind of a focus on parent education. I thought, okay, well, there we go. We're going to focus on parent education through homeschooling our children. So, you know, be careful what you are planning and wishing for. So I have a lot of hope for our community, for what we can do to support one another, to keep ourselves safe, and carry on with what we do in Waldorf education. I have a lot of strong feelings that, and just great hope for that anyway. So, and I will do all my surveying work here to get an idea of what everybody else is feeling also.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Julie.
Yeah, thank you.
If I were to throw 2 cents in, I'm sorry we won't be there for the meetings. We're going on a camping trip here soon, so that hurts to not be part of that. But I look at the Anchorage School District and think about what a gigantic institution it is, and how many large institutions are often resistant to change unless there's a precedent or a model that you feel has already worked and maybe represented the character and institution of Winterberry. So maybe as we look for solutions, we look to ourselves as providing models for other people and use that as a backdrop to basically letting people understand we want to do what we want to do. Thank you. Thank you, Pepe Phelps.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to wrap up this discussion unless there's any other final words. I think we have a good immediate action from what Julie is doing. And Julie, thank you for just grabbing the reins and galloping away with this. It's great. I think if there's a way we can have some sort of update by next Thursday, as far as where things stand for the board, I think that would be really helpful for us. I'm not opposed to, I think if people are willing to be maybe a little flexible, it may merit an emergency meeting, depending on what we're looking at. Things are pretty dynamic right now. So I think I'm asking the board to be flexible and open to meeting on an emergency basis if necessary. I don't know what is ahead of us. I don't think anybody really does. And so I'm just asking for everyone's understanding about that. Let's wrap this up unless there are any other notes of discussion before we move on to gratitude. Okay. Let's have a round of gratitude and then we can sign off for the evening.
I'm very grateful for the level of professionalism and care within this body. And I very much appreciate serving with each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
I'll go next. I feel that, we're in these extraordinary times with incredible amounts of uncertainty, and I really appreciate what everybody's doing. Julie, you're doing a great job, and these are just hard times. So if there's anything that we can do to support you, please reach out to us or reach out to me personally. And the teachers, I can't imagine being a teacher right now myself. I would be, really scared, honestly. So I don't envy, the decisions that are going to have to be made here. But I think we all share the same goal, and that is to keep people safe. So I feel like whatever that, however that needs to happen, I personally feel our safety is the most important thing. So thank you to everybody, and Julie in particular.
This is Sue, and I, in a time where I'm like day to day, can't make people ask me questions about 2 weeks, and I go, nope, I got to get through this week. That this meeting has fills me with some hope and fingers crossed, and that we as a Winterberry community kind of circle the wagons and do what's right for our community, which then will help the rest of the community if we can do our part in flattening the curve. So I'm just grateful that we were able to share, let our voices be heard at this meeting.
I guess I've been, all this being said, I have a group of friends, a small group of teachers I work with, where we've been collectively talking about how we can use this as an opportunity for our own children. And so we're in the process, a small group of us, of creating like a micro school for our high schoolers, and really trying to leverage like how amazing Alaska is as a learning and outdoor learning environment. And we're kind of coming together. There's a group of 3 or 4 of us to get our high schoolers outside and really rethink what an ideal high school outdoor learning environment. And we're kind of creating something I'm kind of excited about, despite everything that's going around. So I think there's some real possibility here to rethink some things and try something different, or at least step away we're trying to look at it as stepping away for a year and letting our kids kind of take off and explore and kind of wrap around using the help of one of the homeschool groups. So there is some, I guess, something good, I guess you could say, coming from all this, at least. I don't know. So, yeah.
I just wanted to voice my gratitude for all of you for showing up and talking through this. I know this is sticky stuff and there's really not a roadmap for it. I feel like we're kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And I really want to echo what Paula was saying, just of gratitude to our Winterberry teachers. My mom was a teacher for 30 years and my dad was a teacher, and I love teachers, and I just wish that we could had it in our power to provide you with the most possibly ideal situation for the opening of school that ensured your safety. And it's foremost in my mind, and I appreciate each of you so much, and the rest of the teachers at Winterberry. You're amazing superheroes, and thank you for what you do.
Suzanne, I'd like to give you some thanks for all the hard work you've been doing, and also I made a number. I don't think that an emergency meeting is inappropriate at all if we find it to be necessary. And also 2 gratitudes. This was gratitude in advance for some of those strawberries. Lisa, thank you. Look for me.
I'm grateful that this is a sane and civil space for these discussions. That is not always how this is going currently. And so while there are differing opinions of how to approach it, there is a consensus on how to have the discussion. And that is nice to be, to witness.
I messaged one of the school board members those questions and that were asked, and the answer is that the actual decision to open lies with the superintendent unless they wish to override what she's doing, and that you need to talk to Daryl.
I just like to express my gratitude for both this board and our whole school community. I am really honored to be a part of innovative thinking and heartfelt and heart-led thinking. So I'm really grateful to be part of this team.
I have to echo that. I have a lot of gratitude for this community and for the parents that I have not met who have reached out to ask how they can support or how teachers are feeling. So that's been nice.
Well, our family is thankful for all. Thank you for keeping us going, and we're happy to keep this long conversation going because it'll take a while. This guy's thankful for strawberries too.
Oh my gosh, my strawberries are taking over the world. Yay!
Maybe that'll be the name of our online school, Strawberry. Winterberry became Strawberry this year.
Override by strawberry, whatever.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn if there's no more gratitude?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Paula. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mark and Jesse in the chat box. All right, Twinkle. Thank you, everyone. You will be hearing from multiple people in the next week, I think, and have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.